Hey, good morning and welcome to B2B Sales Marketing Fry Talks. We are back again from summer holidays. Together with me, there is Roland. And as usually, we are running a conversation about sales and marketing matters, share insights, best practices, and anecdotes from leaders of B2B sales technology companies. Excuse me. So, and this time we kick off this new season with the topic around the webinars. And we all know that webinars is nothing new. We are running them for a very long time as part of the marketing execution and so on. But the thing is that there are definitely many areas to be still improved to make it working better for lead generation, for other marketing purposes. And let's discover, first of all, why, and secondly, then what we can do about this. So, Roland, you studied some interesting papers around this topic. Could you please share some insights? What exactly it says? Why webinars are still so important?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, what we see from research is that actually if you ask B2B buyers what kind of content they find most useful, then actually they answer quite clearly that webinars are the most useful. I mean, there's not like, day and night difference with other types of contents, but it's very clear that webinars is something that they appreciate. Another data point is actually that Netline, which is a company who deals with marketing content syndication. Actually, they say that they saw that interest in webinars increased by 80% from year 21 to year 2022. And moreover, there's also data which quite clearly says that webinar registrations are very much correlated with purchase decision in less than 6 months, right? So it means that people who sign for webinars, on average, right? On average, they have much more specific interest, and they have much more intent to purchase, and they are closer to purchase decision. So it means that webinars generally is a good way to identify customers which are rather close to making a purchase decision. But that, of course, depends on the content of webinar.
Yes, that is exactly what I just wanted to mention, that webinars can be serving very different purposes, right? And again, if we recall all our previous discussions about the customer journey, you probably might remember that there are different stages customers are going through, and you should be aligning your content and your purpose of this webinar to particular stage of the customer journey, right? And if it's like in the top of the funnel where you just need to help customers recognize the opportunity or maybe a problem, those webinars very unlikely will be generating you a lot of leads and demand. It's more about building an awareness and educating your audience, right? While, as you just mentioned, if those are people who are already more closer to the decision-making process, and your webinars are about explaining them those different solution options for their problem or again an opportunity, that's completely different type of the content. So here you show more like a solution, you even have a demo part of this webinar, and you specifically drive them to the call to action, which is about having some next step activity in your sales funnel.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if we consider the buyer's journey, then actually companies who are using webinars early in buyer's journey, when they only want to, let's say, educate their prospects about opportunity or explain the problem, I think a good idea for them would be perhaps not to ask for registration at all. Because we see that whenever you ask for registration, you obviously have a drop of people who are happy to hand over their data. And in general, we see that B2B buyers more and more prefer to do rather anonymous research and exploration before they are ready to talk with sales or hand over their contact data at all.
Yes. From that perspective, if you think again of this gating or ungating, the classical webinar is still, it's kind of considers people registering for that, joining to the some tool like Zoom or Teams or GoToWebinar or anything similar to that. While, for instance, if you use this video type of content like we do now to distribute your message to as broad as possible audience, and as Roland already said, it's mainly kind of ungated content, then it's more appropriate to use a broadcasting platforms or broadcasting features, right? Like again we do now when you use LinkedIn or maybe YouTube or even Facebook or any other platform where you distribute your content and you reach out to your potential audience.
Yes, absolutely. Because one objectives of yours, of course, is to go after large number of people that you can educate in the top of funnel, and then trying just to help them advance in the funnel or in their buyer's journey until they are ready to talk with you.
And here is a small tip what you can consider doing. If you running those top of the funnel activities like educational and thought leadership type of things through broadcasting, through podcasting, through whatever you call it, where you have no people registering, and it's a challenge from the marketing perspective. How can we recognize them? How we can then convert them, for some sales opportunities or anything like that? Then another option for you is to plan your content in a way that in those kind of broad events you share mainly like concept type of thoughts. You educate people, but same time you always refer to more in-depth content, which is already like in the next stage of the buyer journey. And whether this is available as an on-demand, where then people need to register and sign up for this content, but it should be definitely very valuable for them. Or it's a live event, what you promote through this like a thought leadership type of the content, what you share very broadly. And again, it then requires some registration, and then you convert basically unknown audience to the known contacts, to the known potential leads, what you can then develop, nurture, and work with. But when we just discussed this kind of initial concept of the webinar and why it is needed, I think it's also a matter of proper preparation of the content and the process itself. So what is your, Roland, kind of takeaway from all these webinars what we were running and we were doing for our clients? How the structure of the webinar should look like? What parts are should be as a kind of mandatory and what needs to be maybe reconsidered, and all same, how long this webinar should be?
Yes. So I think it's most important not to make two mistakes, and mistakes happen in the very beginning and mistakes happen at the end. If we talk about beginning, then I think a big mistake is lengthy introduction and explaining of who we are and what our company does, perhaps even going to such lengths as explaining corporate philosophy and so on. And typically, if you just take a look how much it takes, it sometimes takes 15 minutes listening to the information that you as a participant really don't know until you get to the main matter. So my advice would be to start with the core message, to start right away, because you really need to start providing value very, very quickly, or your audience just shuts off and they leave. If you look at YouTube videos, you have maybe 12, maybe 15 seconds before audience leave, and that's really for good videos. And that's setting the standard for the structure. So my recommendation, start with the value right away. And the second thing is the end, because after the webinar, you really need to think what is the next step you propose, what is so-called call to action, what's your offering for audience, what do you recommend them as a next step, And I think if you take care of just those two things, you may be quite okay. What do you think, Andres?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We discussed it also with you, this type of experience, what you just kind of illustrated when people join the webinar. And the point is that if from the very beginning they are not getting the information or level of kind of value details what they were expecting or promised, they very fast, turning their backs and go away from this webinar. And there are different tools, depends on the platform what you use, where you can see statistics. So how long people were staying in your webinar, how engaged they were. And I highly recommend you looking at this data, because that will help you to determine how to change and how to adjust your content. But besides all that, what Roland, you already mentioned, I also would highly recommend thinking of your structure in a way that it's a storytelling, right? It's not just a sales pitch, because often, especially for technology companies, this is quite a challenge. They usually come with the sales presentation to the webinar, and they start just pitching their solution or a product, which is not always appropriate way of doing the webinar. Because again,
Yes.
you have to remember about the purpose, why you do this webinar, and what you actually can give as a value to your participants. And again, not always they are ready to have immediately a sales conversation. So therefore, you have to help them really kind of maybe expand their knowledge on the problem, and share some insights from analysts, from maybe industry on this matter, so that they again feel even more confident that they're on the right path, or maybe they see where to go. And then you kind of introduce them what are the options available, and then you share your expert view, expert opinion, expert suggestions, or anything like that. So basically, you show them ways how these particular challenges can be overcome. And if those webinars also kind of targeting maybe a technical audience, they always are very eager to see details and product itself. But again, try to make it interactive. Try to include demo, and if you have a demo part of your webinar, if it's about the solution, and it's more like a solution brief type of the webinar, devote most of your time to the showing product, but not just a very boring way like, hey, here we click and here we see and so on, but try to illustrate it through or showcase it through some specific scenarios. So before that, you need to maybe define a couple of use cases or scenarios, how this product or solution can be used in solving those challenges, again, what we were referring in the beginning, and just show them end to end. So how that particularly works, maybe without going into very deep details, unless it is like very deep technical, presentation and product deep dive, where this is supposed to be, right?
Yes, like I'll share one tip from my side. Back when we started, like 7 years ago, we noticed that if you script the webinar and if you prepare it very deliberately, then something that normally would take 1 hour, you can actually explain, and not only explain, but also demonstrate in something like 15 minutes. So my recommendation for everyone who's preparing to speak on webinar would be do a dry run and do recording of what you actually say, and then make a transcript. Like, you can do it for free with Office 365. Probably there are some other tools. And when you read what you are actually saying and what's the structure of how you talk, well, it first of all provides objective feedback how you can improve your language. Like, I know for myself that I use too much words, yes, actually, and all right. And also it will help you to decide whether you need to script your presentation. And I would recommend actually scripting, because scripting increases engagement, it improves structure, and and also it helps to retain attention. And you will be able to deliver your content in shorter time. And on top of that, also what you say will be so dense that out of that you will be very easy able to create small portions, small, even maybe 60 seconds video like you see on YouTube Shorts, on Instagram Reels, on TikTok, that you can later use to increase the reach of your message, right? So again, if you're planning webinar, try first of all dry run, see how it looks in written, and then if it doesn't look good, write a script. It will be much better product.
Yeah, I agree. On other hand, don't overdo that, because if you really go like script based presentation, it might look a bit unnatural,
Yes.
yeah, and maybe a bit artificial. So you need to be also kind of more creative here. And I also like very much this idea of scripting, but have it like more as a structure, what you need to follow, but in terms of speaking, be more like as a human, not as a I don't know, bot or something like that, which follows strictly, because people can feel it. They immediately will recognize, and it will not be nice, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is always to remember what are those key messages what you want to deliver, as Roland said. And especially if you plan the webinar as a main kind of content, as a content what you would like to repurpose, that is exactly what Roland already suggested. Prepare those very short but very important messages what you need to deliver, because then you can really create a content what can be redistributed and drive even more demand for this content and for your solutions.
Andres,
and yeah,
there are two types of webinar: live webinars and on-demand webinars. Let's discuss what's the difference between them, these, and what would we recommend doing. So, what's your opinion? Is live better or on-demand better?
You see, it all depends. There is no one single answer to this. I personally see it as the following. So, if the advantages of the live webinar is that there is always a sense of kind of urgency in that, because people then see, okay, it's on a certain date, and they need to register, and you can build a campaign around this accordingly, right? And you can kind of collect the audience and then have it also as an interactive session, and use it for two purposes. One is to really engage your audience more deeply, providing them additional kind of content, additional call to actions during the webinar itself, and we will probably talk about this a little bit later. But secondly, it's also a great opportunity for you to learn from your audience. What are they interested in, by asking proper questions, provoking them for the conversation, and things like that, right? On the other hand, it's quite time and resource consuming to prepare a webinar. Then you need, to run a campaign to drive attendance to this webinar. So it's if you need, to execute it in short term, it's probably not the best or most suitable way of doing this, right? While on-demand webinar, it's always available. If you have it in good quality, prepared, recorded, you can do it in the studio, very well scripted. You avoid any kind of mistakes, any technical glitches and anything like that. So in terms of the quality of the video and content itself, it definitely will be much higher quality and higher value in terms of the content. But at the same time, there is no this sense of urgency what you can incorporate into this webinar. And secondly, it's also not interactive. So, however, of course, there are tools where you can do a semi-live webinar. There are parts which are recorded, and then you still can have a Q&A, but it's again a bit different type of the webinar. So ideally, you create really good live webinar, out of which you create an on-demand webinar, so that this content can keep generating for you leads and build a pipeline.
Yes, I agree. In our experience, we have been able to create super quality content in terms of on-demand webinars, but they almost always went over time, the preparation, because you can improve it, you always want to improve it, make a better demo, and so on. And I totally agree that live webinars, they exert certain discipline on participants. Here's the time, here's the date, it must be ready, and show must go on. And if it's well prepared, you can still use it, actually recording as on demand, and you can repurpose it, and so on. But Andres, what do you think? How to get people to attend actually webinars? Because I can share that statistics is that first of all, getting people to webinars is quite expensive, and probably it can cost in Western Europe hundreds of euros for single registration. And then out of 100 registered, maybe 20 show up. So what's your advice how to deal with this problem?
That's the trend we are also seeing at the moment. In a couple of years before, like you could get to the webinar quite easily. Not hundreds, but maybe tens of people on relatively low cost. But as with pandemics, many or almost everyone moved to this digital kind of environment, and nearly everyone started to do webinars. People became suddenly overwhelmed with this digital content. And we see from our campaigns we are running that it's becoming harder and harder every time to get really people not only register for the webinar, but also come and attend. And you have to keep it in mind. And as you said, Roland, very rightly, we see also cost of acquiring those registrants. They sometimes go above 100 euro per registrant, and you need to calculate whether it makes sense and what else you can do instead of that, right? But nevertheless, webinar still is quite an attractive tactic for generating leads. From
my experience, I would say that awareness about your offering, about the quality of your content, and so is immensely important. Because if we look at our own, let's say, latest webinar, statistics is what we had. I think 107 people signed up, which is a great number, and then we had something like maybe 25 actually showing up. What really warms my heart that, let's say, 80% of people who actually attended stayed actually full 90 minutes, because that was really in-depth webinar full of information. So. And I would say that if you produce content frequently and people are familiar with what you do, attracting people becomes much easier. And actually for that webinar, we only used LinkedIn, and we didn't spend any advertising dollar actually to get people. But that's after 7-6 years producing all kind of content. So I guess we are quite known.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Roland, what you shared. I think, first of all, awareness and your kind of audience, or organic or owned, whatever you call it, that's very important. On the other hand, if you just new and you're entering either a new market, or maybe you just started your kind of broad activities and you need to build it, of course, it will take time. But what you also need to keep in mind is competition for this audience. Right, the level of the engagement will be relatively low, and in order to get people looking at you and spending time with you on your webinar, you have to prepare really high quality content, which is highly relevant, highly valuable, and that requires not simply just, as we talked, taking just a sales pitch and presenting it. but really working on understanding what, first of all, your audience are looking for, what type of questions they actually have, and helping them answering to these questions first.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think, first of all, you need to answer what are the needs of my audience and what they want to know, because nobody cares about, spending maybe 40 minutes reserving time to watch your product presentation, right? Unless you are perhaps, I don't know, Apple
But
or maybe
even then,
Microsoft,
of
right?
course, Apple, yeah, but I think now we can take another example, what we often see, like, for instance, Microsoft products, where we deal more with Microsoft type of partners, and so, which, for instance, are pushing a lot Teams and things like that. And again, there are plenty of already existing recordings, past webinars, and topics on this product, right? How to use Team for that, and for that, and for that. And those Microsoft partners still keep doing those webinars in very kind of old-fashioned manner when they try to show the stuff what is already available anyway. And I think the difference here can be when you take it from the different perspective. When you, for instance, just take a very narrow scenario, and you show it not just because you want to show how to click on Teams certain kind of icons, but you really show it from the outcome perspective. If you are a small business, if you want to engage with your customers, and I don't know, reach out to new international markets, how can you do that? And then you include not only Teams but also other products, maybe some applications, and you really share a best practice how to do that. And it's completely a different story. Then people will be more interested in learning that and watching that. That's my opinion.
Yes. All right. We're probably approaching the end of this podcast. Andres, let's discuss maybe the most important, and this is what to do after the webinar is over.
Yeah, after the webinar is over, you from the very beginning mentioned that this call to action is one of the critical components, what you need to be from very beginning clear about. And that starts with that. So what you want customers to take as the next step. And don't finish the webinar with just saying thank you for attending, but finish the webinar with encouraging them for the next step, like, hey, register for that, or apply for that, or I don't know, whatever it can be. Yeah? Prepare your next step for the audience. I think that's one of the success factors.
Yes, and I would say that if you look at webinar and actually also other type of content, like you should see this as a start of possibly beautiful relationship, partnership, and business, possibly, right? And so it makes sense, first of all, to do analysis and see if data is available about behavior on webinar, and to see if people are staying. Maybe there's a moment when they tune out and leave the webinar. That may be information for you about the quality of content. Then probably you need to do a research. Actually, check out who are the people who signed up. Is it your audience, or are these maybe students from local business school who have a study assignment? Then obviously you would like to do follow up with those who are qualified, and also don't forget about the audience who actually didn't tune in but registered. Right? If they registered, probably they had a need. So you probably want to share the recording with them. Maybe also use marketing automation to send them excerpts or most important points from webinar, just to help them get the information, help them get educated. And another thing which you are likely to notice over time as you do more and more webinars and work with content, that records in your marketing automation over time will start to show who of your audience are most engaged, who are more interested. And this is a good sign that perhaps it's worth paying more attention to those contacts, maybe reaching out, because obviously they have become part of your audience. They are returning, they are checking your website, they are returning to your webinars, and so on.
Yeah, I think it's a good summary, Roland. And I only can add that think of this as a part of your funnel approach, right? Don't consider the webinar just as a single, single activity.
Yes.
See what will happen after. So, and a very good point about the marketing automation. Don't rely only on the webinar tool itself. Try to integrate it with the CRM or marketing automation, ideally, so that you can collect more information in time, see some patterns of behavior, identify highly engaged leads, and then you can kind of automate even this follow-up process. And also consider doing a nurturing. One idea, what you just mentioned, is about to share a recording and then maybe some short excerpt from the webinar. But similarly, you can continue the conversation with maybe some kind of content in form of ebook, maybe some product guides, maybe you have some other related information what can develop this topic further and continue the conversation. Don't give up, and just keep on communicating with your audience. Invite them for another webinar, and you will see that after some time, people will start to convert, and that's what probably all marketing people will be happy about.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that in conclusion of this webcast, we can say that certainly we wish you lots of success with webinars and other marketing content. And if you need any advice or help, you can also reach to us, to myself or Andres directly on LinkedIn. And we like to talk about demand generation, and we will also probably be able to share some advice.
Definitely. And don't forget to follow IBD Consulting for more content on topics like this. On LinkedIn, you can find us easily. We are also available on other platforms, but LinkedIn is our main channel where we keep communicating with our audience. You can use hashtag FryTalks to find all related content from our previous episodes. But if you are interested to listen or to watch previous episodes of B2B Sales and Marketing FryTalks, you can always turn to YouTube and search it there, or you can go to your favorite podcast platform, and you definitely will find us there as well. With all the recordings, we currently have over 40 episodes available, and feel free to listen to them and share your feedback with us. We are very much looking forward to hear from you. Otherwise, I join Roland's wishing you great Friday, great start of the back to business season, and we are looking forward to have our next conversations. Stay tuned with us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.